This is Talk the Devils, the athletic show dedicated to Manchester United. Coming up today, we look at the reasons why Andre Onana is off to Turkey on a loan deal with Trabzonspor. We go deeper into the background of Senne Lammens, who could be set now to be the new number one straight away. And we also look at what else has happened during the international break. It's a full house today. Everyone's back, feeling fresh, looking forward to Manchester United being back in action in just a few days' time in the Manchester derby. So hello Laurie, hello Carl, and hello Andy. Joining us later as well will be Belgian journalist Axel Brisart to bring a little bit more insight on Senne Lammens. He's been tracking his career in Belgium, in Antwerp, so there's lots of interesting stuff coming up in that conversation. But how are we doing, everyone? We okay?
Yeah, fantastic.
Okay.
How are you getting on?
All the better for seeing you.
Yeah. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? You've been a busy bee though, Laurie, haven't you? Digging into goalkeeping stories, and Andre Onana's off.
I thought this was over, right? I thought the transfer window was closed, but Carl always did say, keep an eye out for the Turkish window, the Saudi Arabian window, and it's the Turkish one that has given us more reason to, log on to Athletic or make my calls as we were doing, and Carl as well. You know, we kind of aligned, didn't we, on a transfer story, Carl? That was a beautiful union on Saturday. Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
So obviously
nice.
the reports were emerging, weren't they, that Trabzonspor were in talks with United over Andre Onana, and it's developed quite quickly, hasn't it? And I think this is something that I was alluding to on the last podcast I was on in terms of the situation around Onana and Amarin and the club not quite being as perhaps we perceived it as pre-season was ongoing, and there been some issues there behind the scenes, and I think that's why this move has now come to the fore, because Onana clearly felt that he wasn't going to get the game time that he perhaps was expecting in advance of returning to pre-season and then the start of the season. And also the financial situation as well. We're led to believe that he's going to be earning significantly more at Trabzonspor in Turkey, as we were discussing last night, Ian, not least because of the tax rate over in Turkey for footballers, giving him a lot more take-home pay to begin with. But that's been a kind of theme of Onana's perhaps career at United since the Champions League Cup came into play at the end of his first season, and obviously his salary went down. I believe he's got people back home that he looks after essentially. So perhaps the financials were more of a pertinent point for him than we had understood. But he's off on loan to Trabzonspor. It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because they're not one of the traditional big clubs of Turkey. How's he going to fare over there? We can certainly get into that and watch his progress this season. I think that'll be interesting. But it does, I think, reshape the goalkeeping picture for United and kind of does raise in prominence the signing of Lammens, and whether he's going to be straight away ready to compete with Bayern for that number one spot.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of angry people in Trabzon now, Laurie. I hope you realise that. You've just sort of denigrated their major side. But anyway, Carl, the interesting detail of this, there's no loan fee and there's no agreement in there to make this deal permanent, whether that be an option or an obligation. So in loan deals these days, especially for first-team players, that's quite unusual. What does that say about this deal, in your opinion?
It's a rental for the Turkish club, and it's providing a clear runway for Lammens to become the number one. We were only talking a couple of days ago about how Lammens was supposed to be a superior number two to Bayern to push Onana to the very limit. Well, he's already achieved one objective. He surpassed him as the Manchester United goalkeeper without even having to kick a ball. So here we go. There's of our loanees right now, I think there's probably two or three that will return in the summer, but I doubt there'll be a Manchester United player after that fact. So it's up to Onana to have a good season in Turkey and provide himself with the proper platform to find another club in summer 2026.
Are you putting him in that bracket then? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I obviously there's a lot of football still to be played, but in the same way, I'd be very surprised if Jadon Sancho plays a competitive game for Manchester United again. I'll be very surprised if Andre Onana plays a competitive game of football for Manchester United again.
Yeah, okay. There's been a vote on our Manchester United WhatsApp channel. Search for The Athletic and Manchester United on WhatsApp if you're interested in that and you've not joined that yet. Basically, 4,500 respondents, Andy, to this vote. And basically it was asking the question about whether it's the right thing to do to move Andre Onana on. And basically over 90% said yes, it was the right decision. It was something like 3% who wanted him to stay. That's quite a resounding result of that vote. Do you think that's reflective of how Manchester United fans have felt about him now? Has the trust just gone in Andre Onana?
Sadly, yes. I think there's been too many mistakes. I think there was a lot of support for him at the start, and he had a really wretched start, culminating in that game in Istanbul against Galatasaray, where Manchester United went out of the Champions League. And I know that he felt really let down by the fact that at the end of the game, his teammates didn't come up to him. They just left him there isolated. I mean, the mood in the United end was vicious towards him that night because of the errors that he'd made. Goalkeepers are always going to make errors, but too many were made, and his stock just dropped and dropped. And he absolutely had months where he looked really good. I think at the start of last season, he was looking okay. He had a good partnership with his goalkeeping coach, who realised that they were getting the best out of a pretty complex character, and they were trying to get the best version of Onana. And it had been really, really difficult for him in the first season. And at times he'd gone to the club with like, whoa, because of the stick that he was getting. And I think it's pretty difficult for any human to deal with that. But that all changed in November because Ruben Amorim came in with his own goalkeeping coach, who's, I understand, is a very old school goalkeeping coach. And I don't think that helped Andre Onana. I don't think it helped his performances. And United fans, I think, just gave up on him. And I think if you're judging him as a signing over the 2 years he's been at Manchester United, unfortunately, you would have to say that he has failed. I think he started badly and ended badly. And while there are absolute moments, you get the results of that poll and you know exactly how Manchester United fans feel about him.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. Just before we talk about his time at United and where it's gone wrong for him, let's hear from Engin Kehale, who sent us a video. He's a Turkish football journalist, and this is all about the environment that Onana is stepping into by joining the 7-time Turkish champions, Laurie.
Hello, it's Engin Kehale. It's been just a big transfer saga for goalkeepers this summer. Muslera departed in the beginning of the summer, but Galatasaray has not been able to replace him until the end of the transfer window. Fenerbahçe looked for a goalkeeper as well. Donnarumma, Ederson and Uğurcan Çakır, who Onana will replace in Trabzonspor, have been names in contention for both teams. I think if any of the deals fell through, Onana would be a candidate for both teams, so Galatasaray and Fenerbahçe. At the end, Fenerbahçe got Ederson, Galatasaray finalized the deal for Uğurcan Çakır and hence Onana to Trabzonspor. Uğurcan was the captain of the team and there's been a huge backlash from the fans after his sale to Galatasaray. The conception was that this could well cost them being a contender in the league. So it's logical to assume that there will be some pressure on Onana, and we can easily say that he hasn't handled the pressure in a good way in his Manchester United days. That said, if he can start well, the fans would adapt him very, very quickly. Trabzon is a very emotional city and their ups and downs are quite fast. It's not easy to compete with the big two Istanbul teams, but they started well, and until Uğurcan's transfer to Galatasaray, the mood was quite good. They will probably have a positive feeling on Onana joining because they want to get over the Uğurcan deal as soon as possible, but he has to start well. And replacing Uğurcan will not be easy, but if Onana can replicate what he has done for Inter, I think it will be a good suit for the team and himself.
Thank you, Engin, for doing that. Great to get that insight, Laurie. And you hope for Andre Onana it goes differently than how it's gone at Old Trafford. Because the thing is, when he first arrived, moving away from De Gea was a huge call for Erik ten Hag. But a lot of United fans saw Onana in the Champions League final against Manchester City, me included, and were just blown away by his style and the way that he could play with his feet. He's basically a playmaker with gloves on. It's just not happened, has it?
Yeah, and I think there's probably different reasons for that. I suppose
not all his fault, I suppose, would be the thing to say too. Yeah,
I mean, obviously the defence has been changing in front of him, so that's been something to kind of come to terms with. Whereas at Inter and even at Ajax before that, the team was pretty settled, and they knew their roles, very well drilled. It hasn't always been like that at United, has it? Now I will say that there's, on the flip side, there was some uncertainty, I think, from between him and the defenders in front of him, where he would perhaps stay on the ball, they might drop to take it off him, and he'd kind of kick it long, and then they'd have to kind of push up 15 yards to get the offside line correct again. So clearly those issues, I think, remained. to Andy's point, he certainly pulled off some incredible saves. I mean, the double save at Crystal Palace, stands in my mind. That was just last season, at the start of last season, and that was when he, I think, was probably maybe even at his peak for United fans, because he'd obviously come in and had those errors in the Champions League that had really damaged his first season. But then, the errors continued. I think the Lyon game was a real bad one because of the whole kind of media spat with the Nemanja Matic as well, and then you had sort of Matic posting a pitch with some United staffers, and so that, I think, suggested perhaps where certain people's thoughts lay. But I think Onana certainly came back into this pre-season expecting still to be number one, and it wasn't on United's agenda to sign a new goalkeeper. They had other priorities, not least in the attacking part of the pitch. But I think as pre-season went on, it became clear that okay, maybe they were going to do something here, and sort of to the point that I've sort of been referencing and have written about in The Athletic on my sort of wrap up of the transfer window. There was the hamstring injury that he kind of suffered in the second day of pre-season. There were some sort of questions around that in terms of how can you get injured that early in pre-season. Have you done everything right in terms of the summer to come back and then get an injury straight away? I think that frustrated Amorim. I think that frustrated people at the club. So then he doesn't even feature in the squad for the Arsenal game, and I think that surprised him, and I think that sort of showed the path ahead. Obviously he played at Grimsby, another couple of mistakes. I think his confidence by this point had been really hit, and I think that's something he does feed off, from people that have worked with him, sort of say that he is, for all the kind of sort of bravado that he has, he certainly fronts up, those mistakes that he made in Bayern Munich. He made sure that he spoke out after the game, but I do think he is a player that does have these kind of, sort of changes of confidence, and if he's having a dip of form, that can affect him. And so I think the Grimsby game kind of made up people's minds, and United had already started having these proper conversations over Lammens, but I think that kind of crystallised in their minds what they wanted to do. And at that point still, he'd been told, or at least his camp had been told, no, we were happy for him to stay, we want him to compete, we want kind of cover for AFCON. But then again, they sort of checked back in after Lammens had been signed, and the message sort of slightly changed a little bit, where it's like, listen, if you want to go and look at offers and opportunities, you can do. I think they had perhaps looked at sort of opportunities in the summer. Monaco were a club that I believe made an inquiry, but were told that the transfer fee would have been, beyond their means. So, that was left there. But then that's what I mean. Something's clearly changed at this point as to United actually going for a goalkeeper, and Onana feeling like, well, okay, if I want to get regular minutes, I'm going to have to depart. And I think that was something when we were in the studio, wasn't it? That you asked me the question, and then we got into Lammens with Carl and the octopus references. And that was, I think that was at the point there where I'd got the sort of suggestion that United were actually going to go and make a change here.
Well, the one thing it will do is push Senne Lammens further forward as a potential Manchester United number one straight away. So let's get some more background then on the character that Manchester United have signed, and of course the quality as well. We're joined now by Axel Brisart, who works for the Belgian newspaper Hutsladse News in Antwerp. Axel, thank you for joining us.
Hi guys, thanks for having me.
I hope I got close to the pronunciation of your surname and the newspaper, because we did
do
a little
close
bit
enough,
of practice.
close enough.
Brilliant. Well, the main thing is you're here, and it's amazing to have you. So just give us an idea then. What are United getting with Senne Lammens, in your opinion?
I would say a very all-around goalkeeper. He's regarded in Belgium as a top talent. Really grabbed his chance last season at Antwerp. To me, I've listened to your episode of last week. I think your analysis was very great on Lammens as being a great shot stopper. That's really his biggest strength to me. I've talked to Vincent Janssen. He's the striker of Antwerp right now, and he played for Spurs. Mm-hmm. And he told me, the saves Senne does in training, but also in games, are just incredible. He can stop or save shots that can be saved, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So that's really his biggest strength. And also, he's a very proactive goalkeeper. He likes to come and claim high balls. Sometimes there's still a little bit of hesitation, or his timing is still a little bit off. But I have to say he has already improved quite a lot on this matter, and also it comes with experience, I think. But just in general, he's a great all-round goalkeeper to me.
Yeah, obviously we spoke on transfer deadline day, didn't we, Axel? And you were at the airport, sort of watching it. Old school journalism. I was really appreciating that. Were you surprised that United actually went ahead with this? And how did the move come about from your perspective in Antwerp's?
So let's say if you watch his performances last season in Antwerp, you could tell that he was ready to make a big transfer, even to the Premier League, his dream competition. But I think a lot of people thought that maybe clubs like Sunderland or Leeds United or West Ham United would go for him. Obviously big clubs as well, but not the biggest out there in the Premier League. So I think you could say that Manchester United really pushing for him was kind of surprising. But on the other hand, if you looked at how Andre Onana and Altay Bayindir were performing, I mean, United really needed a new goalkeeper, I think. So yeah.
Hi, Axel. Could you talk a little bit more about his high claims and crosses? I know a couple of United fans are getting a bit scared by some of the highlight reels where he goes for a cross and he misses it.
Yeah, I don't think they should be scared. Like I said, I think especially at the beginning of last season, just when he became the new number one of Antwerp, we had some timings that were off. But as I said, he really improved in only one season of time. So I think there's still a lot of progression to be made. And I have to say, Lammens, if you talk to him, if you stand next to him, he has really a big posture. He's really strong, really big guy. So I think in that case, he should be ready for the Premier League. But of course, he will have to adapt to the physicality of the competition. I think. I mean, I think we can say that every set piece is like a real fight in the Premier League, more than it is in the Belgian league. So this is something he will have to adapt to. That's for sure. But yeah, he's a very confident guy, so I think mentally that he's ready.
What's his background? What's his personality like?
So, like I said, a very confident guy, strongly believes in himself. I can tell you one little story. In the end of July, there were already rumors about Manchester United or a possible top transfer. And after the game against Union, Belgian champions, against who he made a penalty save, he came to the mixed zone to talk with the journalists, and obviously there were a lot of questions about the transfer, about Manchester United. And a lot of players, they would just say, I can't tell really anything about it. Let's just see what happens. But Senne Lammens, he just said, to me, Manchester United is one of the most beautiful clubs in the world. And if clubs like Manchester United are really interested in you, then you just deserve it. Then you just performed well enough. So just to make clear how confident he is, and I think he really thinks that he's ready to become maybe the new number one of United very quickly.
Why has it taken this long for him to have that first season with Antwerp? Or I say so long, I know he's only 23 still, but for somebody that's then got this move to Manchester United, a big stage, what was happening before this season that's gone?
Yeah, I think first of all, I have to say that Senne Lammens is already for a lot of years regarded as one of the best or biggest talents in Belgium for goalkeepers. But then obviously he played at Club Brugge, where Simon Mignolet has been the number one for years. I mean, he's still performing really well right now. So Lammens just knew that it would be very difficult for him to get into the starting 11. And then in the summer of 23, he made a decision to go to Antwerp, where they promised him more playing time, and he would become the new number one over there. But then, they had their first goalkeeper, Frenchman Jean Butet, and the plan was that Butet had to leave before Senne Lammens could start playing. But the transfer for Butet didn't come true, which meant that Lammens had to stay on the bench for one more year, which was very difficult for him. But I've been told that he was dealing very professionally with the whole situation. And then last year, actually, he really got his chance as a number one of Antwerp, and he took it with both hands. So let's see if he'll do it at Manchester United as well.
Do you think he is ready for that, Axel? The jump from Belgian Pro League to the Premier League is a big one. The kind of temperament that you need to handle that, the scrutiny of Manchester United and Old Trafford. We've seen what's happened with Andre Onana, for example, who played in Champions League finals. So, yeah, to actually make that move, do you think he can actually handle that?
It's a very big step, I think. And I also think maybe even for Senne Lammens himself, it's maybe even a question mark. I mean, it's very difficult to simulate the amount of pressure he'll be dealing with at Manchester United. I mean, of course, Antwerp is a big club in Belgium, but you can't compare it, right? So, to me, that's a big question mark on how he will be dealing with this pressure, especially after the whole goalkeeper drama of the last couple of weeks. I mean, everybody will be looking at him if he's going to start. So that's a big question mark. I think he has the qualities, and he's confident right now. But again, the big question mark is on how will he deal with just the amount of pressure. That's a big question mark.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a huge question mark. It's one that always needs answering as well when these players first arrive. Let's hope, for his sake, that it's a positive story for him. And Axel, it's been brilliant to have you on. So thank you very much for joining us on Talk of the Devils.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, it's great to get that insight from Axel, Andy, wasn't it? And I mean, I wonder if it helps him that Andre Onana is leaving, because we've seen it before where new players join and the old player is in the background and you're always waiting for the moment where the old player steps back into their position, whereas this just removes that completely, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I think the goalkeepers tend to get on pretty well with each other at Manchester United in the last 5 years. There is a little bit of a union. People think that there are these sibling rivalries, and I think they've all been pretty supportive of each other. I think what's more important is how he gels with the new goalkeeping coach. So if you wind back a year, you had Onana actually got on really well with Yella, who was the old goalkeeping coach. And now the new goalkeeper will be working with George Vital, very old school, respected in his trade. And these are relationships that have got to form very quickly because you have the Manchester derby coming up. So Bayondir, I would have said it would have been Bayondir going back to Turkey, to be honest, over Onana.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But football throws these things up. Trabzon's a huge club. They're the fourth biggest club in Turkey. They're the biggest club outside of Istanbul. Why are you shaking your head? They're a massive club, Trabzon. Amazing fans.
I'm shaking my head at Laurie,
yeah.
Andy. Yeah.
I wasn't trying to denigrate Trabzonspor. I'm just sort of thinking, if you are Manchester United's number one, to then not go to one of the big three in Istanbul, is that not the natural progression if you're going to go that direction? I appreciate the options were limited because, they didn't need a goalkeeper, whereas Trabzonspor did. But I don't know. It's just an interesting subject now.
Well, as Engin explained as well, there's been a bit of a merry-go-round, hasn't there, for the goalkeepers over there? So I guess you've got to find your spots where you can find them. I mean, you wrote in your article, Laurie, that Andre Onana had a belief that he would be the Manchester United number one again, despite the start to the season that he'd had. So what do you think about the idea of him leaving and now Senne Lammens and Altay Bayındır being just the two keepers, Tom Heaton, I guess, as well, but just having that clarity about the fight for the number one spot, I suppose? Yeah,
it does. I think it does harden that sort of sense that it wasn't all right, over pre-season. He was away in the US, certainly an engaging character. I did there's like a community day in Chicago with a load of school kids at Chicago Fire's facilities, one of them anyway. And Onana, Luke Shaw and Rasmus Højlund were the three that were there. And Onana was the one that all the kids wanted to have pictures with. They were chanting his name. He looked a little bit bashful actually when he got pushed to do the kind of gauntlet by Luke Shaw through the kids and give them high fives. And it was sweet to watch. He wasn't playing, obviously, having the injury. He was kind of the manager on the sidelines in this kind of little kickabout they were having. But I do think, I know I'd said that his confidence has taken dips, but I think ultimately he did feel that he was going to come back and be, the starting goalkeeper for United, given his pedigree and given all that he's, done in his career so far. And as you say, against Altay Bayındır, who hasn't, it's not like he's been tearing things up as the number two and kind of really forcing the issue. So I think that was a surprise to him, and that's when, okay, maybe we need to have a look at our options here. And I do think, so I touched on it a couple of times, but the Champions League cut that all players getting their salaries. Onana got it after his first season, and I think from that point, I think he was looking at maybe could I get a refresh of the terms. There was, I think, interest from Saudi Arabia to that point, and they would obviously have offered him, if it had come to fruition, a much larger salary, and that's why perhaps Trabzonspor is such an appealing prospect for him, because of the tax break, because of the kind of bonuses, and we're led to believe, according to sources, that he might even double his kind of take home pay by going there. So I think that is a factor to consider. But I think ultimately it has been a club call, this, really. I think if he'd had his own way, absolutely, he would have been the number one for United still going into this season. So yeah, it's a fascinating turn of events, because it does leave that position, short on perhaps experience, certainly in the Premier League, which I think maybe is why Ruben Amorim earlier this summer was back in that pursuit of Emi Martinez. And as we touched on, the finances of that deal were just not something United could ultimately do. So instead, they've gone for a younger goalkeeper who can develop, and we all hope, obviously, that it works out. But and maybe he has a brilliant game. Maybe he starts against Man City. I'd still think Bayindir starts, personally, just because of the way Amorim's kind of really strongly backed him in press conferences after the Arsenal game in particular, for example. But I think if Lammens does play, or he plays in another big game, there's Chelsea, there's Liverpool coming up, and he has a really good game, then does that give him the instant springboard and the instant kind of satisfaction amongst fans that he could do this job long term?
Yeah, as Laurie mentions there, Carl, it is now an inexperienced goalkeeping group for United. I mean, Altay Bayindir is the experienced one of the two, and he's made 7 Premier League appearances in his Manchester United career. Of course, 3 of them this season. Lammens is going to have literally a matter of days to meet his new teammates, train, and then potentially play at the Etihad Stadium. I mean, Tom Heaton is the experienced one, 116 Premier League appearances, but none of them for United. So whoever starts in goal in the derby, it's a big call, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Big call. There's no perfect or easy way to introduce Lammens to the group. Now you've been knocked out of the League Cup and the FA Cups, not till January. However, and I'm in agreement with Laurie here. I think Bayindir is going to shade it for the derby, but then you enter this very awkward situation of, are you waiting for Bayindir to make a mistake before you play Lammens, or are you waiting for something on the training ground and then make the swap? And then how do you justify that to press conference and media at the same time? So difficult
almost
situation.
The longer it goes on, the more pressure there could be on Lammens as well, because if Bayindir does make a mistake, it suggests the results for United maybe have not gone as they want. You then, week after week, when will he start? When will he start? And that anticipation builds too, doesn't it?
So then you go, do you just throw him in a deep end and give him the derby? Do you? I don't know.
Andy's nodding. Andy wants it.
I don't know.
Oh, I thought you had a ready-made answer there, Andy.
Noises.
United's goalkeeping position is a problem. People I respect have told me that Tom Heaton is the best goalkeeper at the club. You also have some side issues. Vitek's doing really well, but he's on loan at Bristol City. So watch him for the future. It was also said to me that Onana potentially probably being away for AFCON, which is 6 weeks in the middle of the season, in the only part of the season when Manchester United are likely to have fixture congestion because it goes over Christmas, was another issue as well.
The thing with that, though, they've just signed Brian Mbeumo and targeted Carlos Baleba, haven't they? So I mean, maybe the keeper position is more concerning in that regard, but there's going to have issues with Mbeumo now as well, obviously.
I hope we get a standout new number one for Manchester United, because I'm really curious as to how the situation will develop. Lammens gets brilliant quotes and appraisals, but then so did Onana when he came, and so have previous goalkeepers. I thought Tim Howard would be a long-term Manchester United number one goalkeeper. There's so many variables that it would be one that we just have to watch for.
And the thing in the derby, Andy, as well, is that at the other end of the pitch, there could well be Gianluigi Donnarumma. It would have been, look what you could have had potentially for Manchester United if circumstances had been different. Or it's James Trafford, who has made errors already in goal for Manchester City, but obviously their long-term number one, Ederson, has also left. So there's a bit of uncertainty on that side too. It's going to be goalkeeper watch in the derby.
I've got real sympathy for Manchester City's goalkeeping situation. I'm sure you can tell that in the tone of my voice. we focus on what matters at Manchester United, and we forget that actually other clubs have got massive issues as well. And as you've said, with Manchester City, with Ederson moving on and Donnarumma coming in, and Trafford and Manchester City being below Manchester United in the league table and losing matches willy-nilly, they've got issues themselves. So a derby where the focus is on the goalkeepers and there's no hiding place there. The scrutiny, if you make a mistake in that game, is just going to be full on. And can Lammens handle it? I would have liked him to have played more with the Belgian national team, but then look at the players who were ahead of him. That would have given him an idea of what it's like. And Antwerp are a big club. I've been to Antwerp games. The atmosphere is absolutely fantastic. But this is like saying that Huddersfield Town are a big club. They're absolutely nothing near the size of Manchester United with the scrutiny that comes with it.
So Antwerp and Trabzonspor catching strays today, are they?
I tell you what,
Huddersfield Town, it would seem.
Yeah.
The atmosphere at Trabzon will be miles better than any Premier League ground. So he will not know what's hit him either. They are among the most passionate fans in an extremely passionate football environment. But it's also a very unstable one. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer went there knowing if he lasts a few months here, then he's doing something right. So Onana will also be under scrutiny, but not the global scrutiny that you're under playing for a Premier League team, a big Premier League team.
Let's talk about some of the international players that Manchester United have had away. A lot have gone away, Laurie. Not many have actually started the matches, surprisingly. Benjamin Sesko, amongst those who did play 90 minutes for his country, in a 2-2 draw with Sweden, played a key role as well in the late equaliser for them, and that will do him good to get these minutes. He's got a game later against Switzerland as well, so hopefully another 90 minutes, because United need him up to speed, up to pace as quick as possible, don't they, really? He's another one who's got a question mark about whether he starts in the derby or not.
Yeah, I mean, I actually thought when we were talking about Amorim's comments post Grimsby in terms of let's fix this international break, he obviously meant talking with the execs or whatever, or other staff members. Maybe there was a little bit of let's work with the players, because there hasn't been loads going away, has there? And even those that have
not
gone,
as many as normal.
I mean, no England squad, all the under 21s. Aidan Heaven played for the under 20s the other day, and I think he's on sort of standby for the 21s if anything happens there. But it's quite stark, that, isn't it? So Sesko being away with Slovenia, I think it's been interesting, right? The fact that he hasn't started so far. Is that Amorim really wanting to wait for him to adjust to English football and the kind of connections that he needs with his other teammates in the attack? Is that because of sort of loyalty, fidelity to Mason Mount, who has started the season really well? I know that I am, the number one member of that fan club. Exactly. But the injury to him now and the injury to Matheus Cunha does really raise the prospects of Sesko starting this game. I think it would be strange if he didn't start now. I think it'd be, okay, what's sort of going on here? I think so.
Do you expect him to start?
Well, particularly if Cunha and Mount are injured, I just don't see how he doesn't. But even then, like, this is a striker that you've spent a lot of money on. You've obviously pretty much forced Rasmus Højlund to leave to get him in. I think to not start him in a game as big as this would start to look, okay, a little bit curious. Like, what is the issue here? Particularly when Amorim spoke so warmly about him in terms of his intelligence, in terms of his questioning of tactics, or that kind of dialogue that he was having in his first week. So
the thorough prep he did straight away. I remember being in the press conference with both of you, and we were sort of taken aback by how positive Amorim was about it. So when you put it like that.
Yeah, and then did you say he's got an assist for Slovenia in his game? I know he didn't score, but he played the full 90 minutes. So you think that match sharpness is there at least after the pre-season. I think was a fair point. He'd not played, had he, for Leipzig a full 90 minutes. I don't think he'd missed the final game for them in pre-season. So maybe that's a good reason for not kind of throwing him straight in. But I think the fact now that he's played that full game against Grimsby, he's come off the bench, he's played for Slovenia. I think that sharpness should be there at least. So it'd be fascinating though when the team sheets do drop, because we know that Amorim isn't afraid of making big calls away at the Etihad, right?
Let's hope everyone's in the squad this time. Dalot is maybe one who may not be in the squad, actually. He's been withdrawn from Portugal duty at the end of last week with a small issue, so he's a situation to keep an eye on, along with Cunha, who's been posting on social media. You better be fit for this game, Matthias, if you're teasing us with all these social media posts. It's the first time, though, isn't it, when you get these new players to understand their mindset behind some of the posts. And speaking of social media posts, Kobbie Mainoo's caused a little bit of a stir, Andy, hasn't he, on Instagram with his carousel, his cryptic carousel. He's had people reading film scripts and going back over implied narratives as well as actual narratives.
I've not seen the film, but I would say he's probably had happier months as a Manchester United player than the last month, and he's absolutely got his side of the argument, but so have Manchester United. And anyone listening to this, I'm sure you go to work every day, and not every day goes exactly how you would hope. You might not always see eye to eye with the people around you. And I think
Are you
for Kobbie,
talking from experience here, Andy?
not with you lads. I work for myself. I'm sweet. I'm talking about people listening.
Can I have a day off, Andy? Yes, you can, Andy.
Of course you can. Look, he wants to play. He wanted to go on loan. He's not playing. He wasn't allowed to go on loan. I think the crux is how good is Kobbie Mainoo, and I hope that we find that out, and I hope that he becomes a brilliant player for Manchester United long term. But I do not know the answer to that. With the cryptic stuff, I mean, I'd always be careful, because we saw what happened with Garnacho. We saw what happened when Onana reacted to the Nemanja Matic thing. I think Onana could have done things differently. So, the new goalkeeper coming in, you almost need to be schooled very quickly in your reaction to things as well. Do not put more fuel onto it to any fires that might start. Just start smashing it against Manchester City, Kobbie. Do what you did at Wembley against them. Again. That's what we want.
We want his United carousel for September to be not cryptic, Carl. We want it to be wholly positive, smiling faces, goal celebrations, you name it. What was the film? I don't know what it is.
The film is Whiplash.
Come on, Carl, decode it for us. You're on this.
The Whiplash is a film with the first time I watched Whiplash in 2013, I horribly misinterpreted its ending. And now
that sounds like how I still interpreted it, because I've not watched it for a while, and I thought it was a kind of happy ending. So is it really
complicated then, is it?
Well, the film can be read as a what are you willing in order to be brilliant. It's one of the more common readings of it. Whereas I think now I'm a bit older and a bit longer in the tooth with a bit more greys in my beard, I recognise the ending of Whiplash is actually quite tragic and sad, and not something that people who watch it should try and strive for, is my advice. But let's move on quickly.
It's an instructor being quite hard on his tutor, right? And challenging them. So let's see if that works.
There's a very famous monologue in the film where J.K. Simmons talks about the dangers of telling someone good job when they've merely done a B+ star performance, instead of just constantly pushing them to be an A star performer. So you could, if you want to be cryptic, you could say that's maybe Mainoo trying to make a message there, but I'll also want everyone to rewatch that film, especially the final 5 minutes, and go, this is not a happy ending.
Okay, maybe Kobbie needs to rewatch it, Carl. Then. Perhaps we're completely misinterpreting what his interpretation was of a commonly misinterpreted film, possibly.
He's going to set the rhythm for United's midfield, hit the beat. We'd love that, wouldn't we?
Yeah. Do you think Cole Palmer just did a typo and missed out the little triangle to make it a heart as well, or is there something in the number 3?
No,
this is peak international break, isn't it?
Truly.
Now, thoroughly analysing, captions and comments on those captions and the carousel in the first place.
Palmer and Mainoo apparently struck up a really strong friendship over the Euros in Germany. I know there's quite a fun interview with them in GQ last year when they were in their menswear stuff, talking about what it was like playing under Southgate. I think this should be an international break where Mainoo is in the England squad again and building up on his positive relationship with Declan Rice. But no, it's Elliot Anderson, who I think is a fantastic midfielder. I'm really hoping this is a good September, because if you're Mainoo, you do want to start pushing for that England role. And you also want to start pushing for that United role. That's going to be yours for a long time, hopefully. He was good in the Etihad last season. He came on for Mason Mount. And he was hitting the sort of long passes that I think Amram will want more of him to do throughout his United career. So if you can pick up where he left off.
I thought of you when he did one against Burnley, actually, Carl, sort of from right to left. So he's
maybe the big switch.
Maybe he's listening. He has been doing some fitness work, hasn't he, as well? He's been posting, or the personal trainer that coaches him has been posting some kind of pretty rigorous fitness work. So yeah, obviously good to see. You hope that it kind of then translates to actions on the pitch, but I think that's a positive thing, right?
Should say as well, it's not uncommon for players to do this these days. I mean, I interviewed Ibrahima Konate, I think last season at Liverpool, and he'd been posting anime, and I was asking him about his interest in that, and basically he was posting certain characters or certain plot lines from the anime that he'd been looking at to express how he felt in that moment about certain things. So
yes,
you think this is complicated to decode, then just try having a look back at some of his social media posts.
I can decode Konate, don't worry. I know One Piece.
I thought you were going to say anime. Yeah, you're onto anime, aren't you, Carl?
I can decode One Piece. I know about Dominic Solanke's love of Demon Slayer. It's fine.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe that's a conversation
God,
for
I've got
another
to get
day.
a life, don't I?
I'm pining for football again. So let's talk about football actually happening. Because the women got off to a fantastic start in the WSL. A 4-0 win. Top of the league, I think, actually. A very embryonic league table, but I'm sure someone predicted that Manchester United would be top of the table at some point this season a few weeks ago on this show. Ella Toone scored, obviously, the opener. Fantastic celebration from her as well, marking a year since her father passing away. Elizabeth Turland on the score sheet again, of course, and a couple from Melvin Mallard. Too. A positive start to the season, a good way to build up to the Brand game on Thursday as well. And Carl, a very interesting piece from Charlotte Harper about some of the circumstances around United's summer. Charlotte was on the last show, obviously. Go back and have a watch of that or listen to that if you want to know more about how United's women's side are building up to the season. But it feels like a moment for the team, doesn't it?
Very much so. It feels like a moment. I think Charlotte has really explained well the limited amount of incomings in the summer window and how there's a little bit of unease there. Mark Skinner obviously wants more opportunity to invest. I think he said London City. I think he said words to the effect of United can't spend like London City can, which is one of those, Manchester United can't spend like a newly promoted club. But the WSL is...
well, we'll test that out next weekend when they play each other.
I know. The WSL is an ever-shifting beast. I really enjoyed the Leicester game. I think this is going to be a big season for Turland. The goal she scored against Leicester's proper number 9 play. She spends much of the game stood between the width of the post, just being a nuisance to the two centre-backs, and it was just classic. I'm in the middle, whipping the ball, doink, goal. And Mallard looks like she's having fun, which makes me really happy. I think she's brilliant to watch too. So really positive signs. I think top 3 is the aim, minimum aim, and then if you can push on there and see if you can disrupt Chelsea or an Arsenal team, that's going to be a problem too. We'll see what happens next.
Yeah, and reach the Champions League phase as well for the first time, which would be a key stepping stone. I mean, Andy, in Charlotte's piece as well, she detailed that 9 members of staff have left, 2 as well, around the first team picture for the women's side. So it's clearly a transitional moment as well as hopefully a positive moment with the progress that we've been talking about.
Hope so. Hope it's an improvement on last season. Champions League would be a big step up. I'll go and watch them play in Lee in a couple of weeks' time. This London City thing interests me because they play nowhere near London City. They play in Bromley. I went to Bromley 2 weeks ago by myself to complete the 92.
I was going to say, is this what it was about? The 92. We were chatting about it with the colleagues at the Athletic. Richard Sutcliffe has done the 92.
I know.
You've got to refresh it. Yeah.
Well, I've got to refresh it because I've still got to go to Everton, their new ground, haven't I? But it'd be interesting to see how a women's team who are not attached to an established club, if I've said that rightly, how they go on. And they're clearly wedged as well.
Yep, so Michelle Kwang has always talked about the amount of investment she's willing to put in that team. She also owns Lyon, which has now been spun off from the men's team as well. So they will be a noisy entity in the WSL. They lost 4-1.
In Bromley? Bromley are like the most sedate. You can't use the word noise in Bromley. You know, when I sign that ground at Bromley, I've got an app on my phone, right, which tells you where the planes are coming to land. And there's a little private airport near Bromley. I think it's called Biggin Hill. And I'm watching these little private jets come in and they're like cash guys. And I'm thinking, that's got to be a footballer coming from the richest part of Lisbon, coming in on the Premier League. Don't know how we got talking about this. But If London City are noisy down there, then I will eat my hat.
So can we add Bromley to Bournemouth to Huddersfield Town for places that Andy's now barred from, but he's going to get a statue outside Trabzonspor?
Yeah, I don't mind Huddersfield. Good old club, and Bournemouth have been brilliantly run. And Bromley was a nice experience to go there, but it ain't no Ali Sami Yen in Bromley. This is like they've done well to get into the league. Building a new stand, nice pies, nice people. Away you go.
What's the capacity?
We're actually building a new stand. It's going to be just over 6,000. They're building a 2,000-seater stand along one side. It's half completed.
Amazing. Right, well, let's leave it there on Talk of the Devils. Where else would we leave it than updates on Bromley's new stadium plans? It's been brilliant to do it with you. We'll be back on Thursday with a build-up to the Manchester derby and everything else that happens between now and then, I'm sure. But thank you for your company. Carl, Laurie, Andy, thank you as well. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this episode of Talk of the Devils. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you've not done already. Like the video and also get involved in the comments too. And click the bell to make sure that you never miss an episode with myself, Andy Mitten, Carl Anka and Laurie Whitwell. There's also our social channels at TOT Devils on Instagram, X and TikTok. Thanks for watching.